Grim Dawn is one of the best hack-and-slash action RPGs on the market. Crate Entertainment's innovative take on the genre has given character creation in Grim Dawn an incredible amount of flexibility. With dozens of ways to customize your character from class combination, weapon loadout, constellations, augments, factions, and more, the amount of possibilities can be staggering at times. All these options allow players to find and develop a playstyle that suits them best. Theory crafters can spend hours speculating on builds. With the expansion Ashes of Malmuth coming up, which adds even more options like 2 new classes, players will be jumping back into the world of Cairn. With so many options, where do you begin? Some of the game's mechanics might not seem as direct as they appear. The game's nuances only make themselves apparent with experience. This video can serve as a starting point for players. This guide will contain a brief exploration of the game's mechanics, as well as provide a possible framework to help players envision and realize their ideal characters and builds. To make things organized, the process of creating a character or conceptualizing a build is separated into steps. The website GrimTools has recently been updated with the new content, so you can use it in your theory crafting and character planning. Links to the website is provided in the video description below. The first step is to choose your starting class. The classes are fairly self-explanatory. The name and description already gives an idea of the archetype of the characters and playstyles the players can expect. Here is a brief overview of each of the 8 classes with some keywords to give players a more concrete idea of what the skills of the class will revolve around. Do note that each class has great flexibility, and these are just intended to summarize the class but not to lock them into archetypes. Soldiers and Nightblades can use guns, Arcanists can use two-handed weapons, Occultists and Necromancers don't need to rely on pets, Shaman can use daggers, Inquisitor doesn't need to use guns. To make a viable and effective build, don't feel that you have to stick to the stereotypical image and playstyle of a mage, warrior, assassin, archer, barbarian, etc. However, players should take into consideration the stat growth of the class and see how it measures up with the other classes. This will give a better idea of the playstyles available and where players should allocate their stat points when they level up. There is no point in having a melee character without enough health to survive, or having a huge pool of energy but use a playstyle that barely uses any. The second step is to choose the skills you want to use. Take a moment to read all of the skills to see what they do and the modifiers connected to the skill. Remember that you won't have enough skill points to get everything in a class. With the increased level cap to 100, there still won't be enough points, even if you don't take a second class. Focusing on only one class will still force you to leave some skills by the wayside. In addition, the exclusive skills, the most powerful buffs in the game which can be acquired by maxing out the class's level, can only have one active at a time, so for classes that have multiple exclusive skills, putting points in both is pointless since only one can be active. There are some videos on YouTube that demonstrate the active skills of each of the classes so players can see what the skills would look like in-game. Links to these videos will be provided in the video description below. Third step is to determine the damage type. Most classes will revolve around 3 to 4 types of damage. Take a look at the skills you like and see what kind of damage they have in common. You should also see if any of the classes has any passive skills that empower the damage type you are intending to use. Do note that there are some enemies which are immune to specific types of damage, so make sure that you are using at least 2 types of damage. Conversely, having too many types of damage can make it hard to optimize your build, since your equipment and other resources might be spread too thin. Most damage types will also have a duration damage type attached to it and should be considered a separate damage type. For example, fire has the duration damage type of burn. Gear and constellations that increase fire damage do not increase burn damage. However, both damage types are reduced by fire resistance. If you include pets, retaliation, and elemental, then there are 13 damage types in the game. Fourth step is to decide how to allocate your stat points. Now that you have determined what will be your character's sources of damage, this is actually pretty easy. Each of the damage types scale with either cunning or intellect. Physique should not be ignored as it is used to equip armor and some weapons. Make sure that the class you choose has a good growth rate for your most important stats. You can also use the stat point acquired in leveling up to further strengthen your most important stat, or to compensate if the stat growth of your class is not as good as you want it to be. There are other bonuses associated with the 3 primary stats. Physique adds bonus health, health regeneration, and defensive ability. Cunning adds physical damage and offensive ability. Spirit adds magical damage, energy, and energy regeneration. 5th step is to determine your weapon loadout and armor choice. Each weapon has a primary stat requirement for equipping. In addition, each weapon type has a special property and a constellation dedicated to it in the devotion map. Make sure the weapons you choose is compatible with your playstyle and the active skills used. One note about weapon damage. Most weapons deal either physical or pierce damage, but scepters and daggers deal magical damage. When a skill reads that it does a percentage of weapon damage, that applies to the damage type of the weapon equipped. So using an attack that has weapon damage with an ice dagger will deal ice damage. There are 3 types of armor: heavy, light, and caster. Heavy armor provides the most armor but requires great physique to equip. Light armor provides less armor but has more moderate physique requirements. Caster armor will have the lowest physique requirements but also have moderate spirit requirements. Caster armor has the lowest armor but will either have bonuses to energy regeneration or bonuses to a particular magic damage type. Caster armor is only available for head and chest armor. The last step is to determine your second class. Now that you have your playstyle partially realized, it is time to choose a class that will complement it. Ideally, you will want to choose a class that has similar damage types to the ones you have chosen, but there are other reasons to pick a class. Soldier has many passive skills that help with survivability, lowering requirements for armor and weapon damage. Demolitionist has a wide variety of abilities that can provide utility for whatever your first class is lacking. Arcanist has skills that can help with energy management for energy-intensive playstyles. Nightblade has many control options that can root an enemy in place. Try to see what each class has to offer. And there you have it. I hope this has helped make the multitude of options in Grim Dawn less intimidating and more manageable. One last thing to note, this is just one way to theorycraft and create builds. There are players who build around specific equipment, constellation, skills, playstyles, and others. In time, the game's mechanics will feel more natural and intuitive to you, and you will develop your own ways of theory crafting. There is definitely more to explore in the game. Honestly, progression in Grim Dawn can feel more like an MMORPG rather than a hack and slash game. But sometimes the best way to learn about a game is with first-hand experience, so get in there and get grinding. Until our paths cross again, see you, Taken.